This should be a good one, Matthew. We're going to talk about our top 5 at each position headed into 2024. An early look at that top 5. Let's do that right after the stinger. Felix Sharp here, Matthew Bruning there for CampusToCanton.com. I hope you like the content that we're putting out. We're trying to push this Campus to Canton format that encompasses both college and NFL players. I don't know why I said encompasses, but basically you have an NFL team and a college team, and your college team filters into your NFL team. So we're going to get in to the top 5 at each position we have at running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, the 4 fantasy relevant positions. You might find this one interesting. So go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. You find that stuff interesting. Before we get into that, Matthew, I want to talk a little bit more about this Jed Fisch fallout. We released a video, or Chris and I did, that he was going to Washington. But since then, we've heard several reports that this, a meeting that was about 90 seconds saying that he was going to take the job at Washington. It sounds like the players did not receive this news well, or the way that it was given.
Yeah, and I think you have to understand that, though, from college players. There's, I would say, I don't want to say a minority, but an elite few that could enter the transfer portal right now and go wherever they wanted. A lot of these kids don't necessarily commit to schools. They commit to coaches. And I would say, we did a show the night before, did we not? And it was all the talk was, nope, he's staying at Arizona. They're working on, getting him a better contract. So all those players who committed to Fisch were thinking, I'm going to stay at Arizona and play for the coach that I know I'm playing for. So your playing time's locked in. You don't have to worry about possibly transferring out. And then in a matter of 24 hours, he's gone and going to Washington. And for him to, I believe the main part of the meeting was, we are a family. So if I can understand where the players will feel betrayed on that, because they will view that as he's taking the money to go somewhere else. And that's not going to be able, some of the players are not going to be able to follow him. And some of those guys are now going to lose their positions. You could argue, if you view college football as a job, their jobs in a way, because the new coach coming in, hopefully it's Johnny Nansen, who's currently on the staff, their defensive coordinator. But if it's not him and it's another coach, he doesn't like the way, say, Noah Fifita plays. Noah Fifita, why we think great college quarterback, might then have to enter the transfer portal. Where does he go? He may not have a school to go to. So I get where they're coming from. I get why they're upset about it. It is part of the dark underbelly of college sports in general, not just football. It affects all college sports, probably more basketball than football than anything else. But it's part of the dark underbelly of sports that not a lot of people talk about.
I have some secondhand experience dealing with something like this. When Brian Kelly left, now the head coach at LSU, when he left Grand Valley to take the job at Central Michigan, that team that he coached, some of those seniors had never lost a game, or lost one game. And if I could be wrong on the story, but I feel like he just didn't show up to the end of the year banquet, and that's how we learned that he was taking that Central Michigan job. Now, we experienced it again when Brian Kelly took the job at Notre Dame, because he took my head coach, Chuck Martin. We actually did have a meeting with him, and that was a little bit more well-received. The thing is that, but these coaches preach family and all of that kind of stuff, but these types of transitions is where 18 to 22-year-olds get the cold, harsh reality that it's a business, that college football is a business. And I'm glad that we have NIL now, and they can actually get paid, because just like the job that you work for, we ain't really family when it comes down to money. And you're just getting that lesson here earlier. I should say, we care about Jed Fisch because his offenses score points. Noah Fifita, Jacob Cowing, Jonah Coleman, Tetaroa McMillan. Even if you want to go to Tanner Lachlan, Speedy Luke was going to Arizona, and a lot of people took him highly because of where he was landing and the fact that, he was one of the fastest players in his class. But we care about Jed Fisch's offense for what it is that we're doing for playing this college fantasy game. That matters a lot. Now, it is what it is. It is what it is. He showed up to the meeting. He said, I'm leaving. I'm getting a double. He didn't say this, but he actually is getting his salary doubled at Washington. I don't blame them. There's no way to respect the humanity of the players and everyone involved when the dollars are involved. It is a business decision. When me and Chris recorded the show, I said that he is going to have to start the momentum that he already has going at Arizona. when you look at this from anything other than a financial perspective, personally, I don't think it makes sense. Arizona had something good going on. With Jed Fisch at the helm, with what they had returning in starters, this is a team that could potentially come out of the Big 12 and be one of the 12 teams in the playoff next year. That's not happening at Washington. We looked at their schedule. They might win 7 games. I would put the under right there at 6.5. Arizona had the opportunity to come out of the Big 12. He's not going to have that opportunity in Washington. We'll see which of these guys enter the transfer portal, really for both schools. We've seen Austin Mack enter the transfer portal. Jonah Coleman has entered the transfer portal. The big names that we're going to watch are, I would watch Jeremy Bernard at Washington, obviously Teteroa McMillan at Arizona, Noah Fafita at Arizona, as you already mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see a big domino effect here in the next 10 days or so, because what do they get? Like 30 days after the coach
30 days,
so we might see some changes there. Some people entering the transfer portal.
SD Edits asked, do you think Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan are going to leave Arizona? The reports are that if they hire current defensive coordinator Johnny Nance, that they will not be leaving. He's on the staff with Jed Fisch, so we'll see. There's no indication right now on what they are going to do. So I would think if they hire him and the reports are true, they'll stay. I don't know that they follow him to Washington based on the way the meeting went either. So who knows what's going to happen with them? I mean, I see both sides of it. Obviously, not been a player, so I don't know how that part of it feels. I can imagine feeling betrayed like that. I mean, Brian Kelly, you mentioned the Grand Valley, also did that at Notre Dame. I believe he waited until the reports came out that he was going to LSU, then wrote a letter to the Notre Dame players, if I'm remembering correctly, on him leaving. Personally, while I do think there's more to life than money, I can't blame anybody for setting themselves and their family up forever, which is kind of what Jed Fisch did, because look, Arizona.
He was already set. What are you talking about? He's making $3 million at Arizona. He's just going to make 7 at Washington. He was already set.
Anybody who has money, if they want more money, they're going to tell you yes. So you can't blame him for that part of it. And that is part of, unfortunately, the issue with Arizona. And then going into the Big 12, while that is now, I guess, a Power 4 conference, they're not making the money the Big 10 is or the SEC. That money is likely going to increase if he's able to do at Washington what he did at Arizona, and I would think that he's going to be able to. I mean, I don't think any of us expected Arizona, after being 1-11 a couple of years ago, to us literally be talking about if Jed Fisch didn't leave, they would be the favorites to win the Big 12. I had them in the playoffs. That's how great he has been at rebuilding that program that quickly. Washington, I think he will be able to do that, which just means then more money for him down the line. So you hate it for the players, but I get it from like Jed Fisch's point of view as well, and the money part of it, because I know Chris talked about it in the video you two did. The Big 12 is just not going to be making that kind of money. So there's no way that they would be able to probably pay him that down the line.
Yeah, Chris said also they have like a budget shortfall of $250 million at Arizona. It doesn't make sense, but when we talk about just on the field what they're doing at Arizona, we all believed in the last 2 years at what they're doing at Arizona. Anyway, all right, well, let's transition here. We have no idea what we're doing, trying to create a YouTube page, trying to be one of a big college football voice out there and push this fantasy football format. By the way, if you want more information, you can click the link in the description box. But I've heard in growing a YouTube page, you got to do a call to action. So how about this? Subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 3,000 subscribers. Help us get there by the end of this week. And then like the video. 50? I mean, I feel like people are going to come and want to see our rankings. So can we get to 50 likes? Smash that like button. All right, Matthew, we're going to try to figure out if you know ball. I have not seen your rankings. We'll do the top 5 at each position. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first? I mean, I feel like I want you to go first because I'm going to roast you.
Sure, I guess I can go first. What we're going to do quarterbacks first, I take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, now see, you put me on the spot, and I got to find my list because I deleted it really quick. Hang on, 2 seconds. 2 seconds. This is very professional.
Okay, time out. You were just talking about before the show how you were a professional, but you don't have your list of your
when that red light turns on. When that red light turns on, I'm ready to go. Nico Yamala, God, I had that, and now I've got the yips. Josh Heupel's offense, that Tennessee team, I think they're probably not going to be winning the SEC. We'll see what happens with Alabama. There's been a decent amount of players leaving there as well, but I do believe in Kalen DeBoer. But what he's going to be able to do from a fantasy perspective, he does have a tool that you can bet on going into the NFL with the arm. We saw them use him in a rushing sense as well in that bowl game. If they continue to do that, I think he absolutely kills it in CFF for you the next 2 years, has that NFL upside. So he is my number 1 quarterback. Number 2 is still Connor Wigman. I think he's arguably one of the better overall quarterbacks in college football. Really good footwork, really good arm, knows how to read a defense, did get injured early on last year, so we didn't get to see him continue progressing, but I saw steps that he had taken forward from year 1 to year 2. My biggest concern with him is what that Texas A&M offense looks like. I do like them bringing in Klein from Kansas, who will hopefully have him run just a little bit. I don't want him to run too much and get hurt, but run enough, and there's going to be some interesting pieces in that offense that he could be. Emiliava. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I had it. I practiced that so much when I did the Nico video. Jackson Arnold for me at 3. Look, I know Venables lost Levy, but they hired within that system. Arnold has the rushing upside. He's got the arm. He's a little bit undersized. Oklahoma going into the SEC, I think that he will have to pass the ball a ton for them to be in games. I like his CFF upside a little bit more than do NFL. I am a tad bit worried about the size that we have seen these short kings make it into the NFL and doing things. So we'll see. Number 4, Jackson Dart for me. Amazing. I shouldn't say amazing. Really good season last year. He's continued taking that step forward every single year. Now he has it again. We saw what Ole Miss has been doing in the portal. Yes, he loses Judkins, and that is going to hurt. But maybe that means they rely more on Dart. He's been really good running the ball as well last year. Got a little bit beat up, but I like him. And the number 5 for me is your boy Carson Beck. Still have worries about what that's going to mean for the Georgia offense. I still don't think they're going to pass much. They have kind of moved to that 50-50 spread, but he was very efficient last year. I think overall you're betting on a guy who is probably going to give you decent CFF numbers. I think gets drafted probably day 2 in next year's draft class. But he lost a lot of weapons. I'll be curious to see, but it's just a weird quarterback is a weird landscape right now. He was the best out of the next group there, which was, I'll just give really quick, the guys that were in consideration for 5, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Raiola, and DJ Lagway, 2 freshmen. Those were in my consideration for right there at 5.
I think it's interesting that Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava have kind of, in our rankings, surpassed Dante Moore, Arch Manning, etc., even though they were ranked lower than those guys headed into, coming in as freshmen. But we got Jackson Arnold is going to start. We know Nico Iamaleava is going to start. I'm not going to judge your list here. Let us know in the chat, based on Matthew's top 5 at the quarterback position, does Matthew know ball? We'll go. You can go through all.
I don't. So
you don't mean.
It's debate.
Go through all of your rankings, and then I'll go through mine.
Oh, okay. So at running back, I still haven't changed it, even with the transfer of Judkins. To me, he's still the best running back in college football. He's my number 1. Obviously, going to be splitting the ball with TreVeyon Henderson, but he just brings a completely different dynamic they don't have. And we saw how well those two worked off together. When I say 2, TreVeyon Henderson and Mayan Williams, for those 2 years that those guys were kind of splitting the backfield. I think Judkins is a more special athlete than Mayan Williams. So I think he's going to absolutely ball out at Ohio State. Number 2 for me, CJ Baxter. You want that Steve Sarkisian running back. We'll see what Quinn Ewers does. I think he takes that step forward, but I think they rely a lot on Baxter. He had ups and downs in his freshman season, but I think he will be very good. Hard time considering Lagway that, I was trying to read what Austin said about having DJ Lagway.
Here's a professional trying to read comments. Go through. I will handle it. Go ahead. Finish your list.
3, TreVeyon Henderson, with what he can do receiving back-wise and what I think he will do in the offense, getting a decent workload, especially with Howard there, who I don't think they will trust to throw the ball to him. We already saw them move to more of a 50-50 split this past year. I think it stays at least at 50-50, if not goes more to a workload between him and Judkins. For Justice Haynes, the Jason McMillan going to the NFL draft just helps him even more. I know they have Jam Miller there, but I think Haynes is by far the better running back. Would not be surprised if he commands more of that backfield. Probably could put him over Henderson because I think he's a better running back than Henderson. But right now I'm going to keep him at 4. And then 5 for me, I still believe in Nicholas Singleton. I know he had a down sophomore season. What we saw from him as a freshman was really good. He's probably going to split time still with Katron Allen, but he's just such a special athlete. I believe in Penn State and their athletic program, what they do for these guys and getting them ready for the NFL draft. He's still probably going to be drafted really high. I'm still in on him. I think he's going to be good.
One question I have about your list is Justice Haynes a redshirt freshman next year or a sophomore? I don't know if he got over that 4-game threshold, and they kind of used him in a weird. I agree with you, by the way. I mean, I like the player. Obviously, I like the player. I had him as the number 1 back over Cedric Baxter in last year's class. So I'm just wondering if he preserved his redshirt or not. Okay, running back rankings. Let us know in the chat. Does Matthew know ball or not?
Yes, Justice Haynes played in. Wow, I did not realize he played in 13 games last year. So he burned his red shirt. I guess that's
irresponsible. They should have used him more then. If he played, if he was going to burn his red shirt, they should have used him and got him more time.
I don't disagree with you. Number one for me, Evan Stewart. I think he's the best wide receiver in all of college football going to Oregon. He was there before the transfer to Oregon. That just boosted him up even more. Honestly, as well, we'll talk a lot about this when we get to like our Devy rankings, and we do a tier 0. I don't think that Evan Stewart will be in it. I think he's the only player in all of college football that you could have an argument deserves to be in tier 0. Number 2 for me, still Luther Burden. Took a massive step forward last year. Still a little bit raw as a route runner and overall wide receiver, but I like his game. I think it will translate to the NFL, especially if he lands on a team that uses him the correct way. 3 for me is Teteroa McMillan. So we'll see what happens with Arizona. Obviously, him and Noah Fafita had that great connection from high school into college. I think regardless if he stays at Arizona, if he does follow Fisch to Washington or transfer somewhere else, he's going to be an absolute beast. He's a guy that I think just has translated very well and shown that athleticism in college. 4 for me is Emeka Egbuka. I think he's going to be the one at Ohio State. Again, I don't think that they throw much, or at least not as much as we've seen in the past with Justin Fields and CJ Stroud, but you want that number 1 for Ohio State. I'm going to leave Jonte Cook here at 5, but after the video we did the other day talking about Isaiah Bond, I do have some serious concerns about him because I really could see Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond commanding more targets than Jonte Cook, but I love Cook as a player, and I think he is a very good wide receiver. Even if he doesn't have a great sophomore season, as long as he has that breakout junior year, I think he still gets drafted in the first round because of his intangibles and just the athletic freak of a wide receiver that he is. So I'm going to keep him at 5, but he's on shaky ground for me.
Okay, the question came in the comments, are these Devy or CFF rankings? I want to respect the fact that everybody watching this may not know what those terms mean and may not even know what campus to Canton means. So I want to just quickly explain. I think when I'm ranking C2C rankings, so again, it's a fantasy league where you have a college team and an NFL team, and you are competing in fantasy football in each league respectively every single week. I think when I'm ranking for C2C for this format, it's a combination of, can that player score points for me on the college side of the league, and what is their projection to the NFL? Are they going to command high round NFL draft capital? So for me, it is a weighting of both of those things, which is why somebody like Nick Singleton is going to rank a little bit lower for me, because he's going to split time with Katron Allen, and that's going to hinder how many points he can score on the college side. I'm trying to think about how Georgia backs are deployed traditionally. They usually have like 3 or 4 of those guys running through. Even when they had Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, those guys kind of canceled each other out as far as their impact in the fantasy game, on the college fantasy game. So a player like that may or may not be ranked higher or lower based on their usage in college. Think about Michigan, for example. I could have a top wide receiver at Michigan, but because Jim Harbaugh runs a offense from the 1920s, we're not going to rank as highly, even though we haven't had a wide receiver at Michigan that we should care about in a while. Darius Clemens had a great spring game. Now he's in the transfer portal. So I just wanted to provide that qualifier or disclaimer to explain what it is that we're ranking here. All right, give me your what do you got left? Tight end?
Yeah.
SD Edit says in the chat though that ball because you got T-Mac in the top.
I mean, Teteroa McMillan is a very, very good player. So number 1 for me, I have Aronde Gadsden. He finally gets quarterback. Common Core gonna tear it up. Just is what it is. But obviously a freak for the college side of things, as you were just mentioning with CFF. He is listed at tight end and wide receiver, so he's a little bit of a cheat code, but will definitely, I think, dominate next year with the quarterback who can at least distribute him the ball. Number 2 for me, Oscar Delp, Georgia tight end. We've seen what they've done with that factory. I am curious to see what he does. I'm not that high on him. I'm not high on any of these tight ends, but I think you might like some tight ends more than I do. Honestly, we kind of mentioned that the other day. Number 3 for me, Ben Urosek, who I believe just transferred to Georgia. So now he, I think, will take that step forward. Was at Stanford previously, should transfer over there and be able to get a pretty good draft capital. Luke Lachey for me at 4. And then 5, I have RJ Maryland. And that's just because I don't love Lawson Lucky, Andrew Rappelier right up there, Mason Taylor. Luke Haas, all those guys kind of in consideration. I don't love the tight end class right now, personally.
I think we're going to be diametrically opposites on the tight end position because a lot of the guys that you ranked are some of these tweeners, 225 pounds. And I have a lot of those guys ranked a little bit lower than my traditional 250 pounders who I know can put their hand in the dirt, block a defensive end at the next level. So we'll do that when we get there. You can let us know in the comments if Matt knows ball based on his tight end rankings. Are you ready for mine? Now, look, now the ridicule is going to come my way. At quarterback, I've got Carson Beck at number 1, Nico Iamaleava at 2, Drew Aller at 3, Connor Wegman at 4, and Noah Fafita. Arizona's Noah Fafita at 5. I think the interesting thing about this group is they are all 100% pocket passers. We don't have a Jaden Daniels, a Lamar Jackson. There's no dual threats here. I've got all pure pocket passers, and these guys can really sling it. Now, we haven't seen Drew Aller's ceiling. I think that's because the weapons around him are limited. But, man, I'm still relying a little bit on my high school evaluation of him and kind of what we saw, in flashes this year. They still need a couple of wide receivers. I don't know if that's going to happen. They got a new offensive coordinator there. Can he bring out the best in Drew Aller? I don't know. I tell you what, I saw impressive throw after impressive throw from Noah Fafita against Oklahoma in the bowl game. I mean, I know that he might be 5'8" or whatnot, but we've seen Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, all of those guys have success. The layering of throws, the throwing over linebackers and in front of safeties. And these are on throws that are like 15, 20, 25 yards down the field. High level of difficulty throws. Quinn Ewers is never going to be in my top 5 because you can go back to his high school tape. I don't see those types of throws. I saw about 4 or 5 of them from Noah Fafita in that game. Now, the question is who's going to coach them? All the players want this defensive coordinator to be the head coach. That defensive coordinator comes in and runs some conservative system. He might fall in my rankings, but I hope that they keep that spread system running at Arizona for Noah Fafita because the dude he's a baller. He's a baller. So, you got any comments on my top 5?
It's extremely irresponsible for you to have Carson Beck at 1. Outside of that, I don't hate him. I mean, I like Drew Aller. I've said before, I think he ends up transferring out of Penn State. I think he needs to leave Penn State because Franklin just refuses to let them have any kind of downfield offense that allows him to show off his arm and ability. I think he needs to go somewhere else that will showcase that. I don't mind having Noah Fafita up there at 5. I think he's a really good player. I think, it really depends on how you approach C2C. A lot of people, when they approach the Campus to Canton rankings, they want those top guys who have – it's hard to say secured NFL draft capital because you really don't know. I would find it very hard to believe as much as I love Noah Fafita. First guy talking about him. Love him. I would find it very hard that I don't even think he's 5'8", making it in the first round of the NFL. I don't think Carson Beck's a first rounder, and I don't think he's giving you the CFF points. So you're talking about a guy who's in the middle of everything as your number 1 quarterback in Campus to Canton rankings. He's not. What did he finish last year? QB 36, I think? He's right around QB 30. I don't want to go too far off. He's right around QB 30, if I'm remembering correctly. So not even a QB 2 you're starting every single week. I don't think he's getting first-round draft capital. So you're just that's all. That's all. I like the rest of the list. It's really good.
In 2020, you all made fun of me for hyping up Michael Penix Jr. In 2020, you made fun of me for hyping up Zach Wilson. Now, say about his NFL career, he was the number 2 overall draft pick. Last year, I was the only one of us at the company that had Carson Beck in our top 15 or 20. Was mocked, ridiculed, and abused on this here airwaves for having Carson Beck ranked that highly. And now, he was probably in the top 10 in the Heisman race. Yes. Yes, he's my number 1 quarterback. He has a vertical game that I love. Reminds me a lot of Carson Strong, who I also loved, except he's not going to have the knee issues that Carson Strong had. So, listen, I know ball. Carson Beck, number 1. You can let me know in the comments. Carson Beck, number 1. Is that a hot take? I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. Here's my running back position. Quinshawn Judkins, number 1. Travion Henderson, number 2. Justice Haynes, number 3. Justice Haynes reminds me a lot of a little bit of Jahmyr Gibbs, a little bit of Chase Edmonds. I know that Chase Edmonds doesn't sound like a great comp, but the quicks that Chase Edmonds had coming out of Fordham, I see that in Justice Haynes. Ollie Gordon at number 4. He reminds me a lot of Braylon Allen. CJ Baxter, number 5. But I want to mention my number 6. My number 6 is DJ Giddens. My number 6 is DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I think he's going to be a great interior rusher. He already has NFL size at 6'1", 215 or so. Can he catch the ball a little bit more? I hope so. Next year, we're going to see Avery Johnson in like a more, wide open offense for Kansas State. Could DJ Giddens be that check down, safe security blanket for him on the, in the flat or what have you, and get to 20 receptions or whatever? I like DJ Giddens. I have him ranked higher than Nicholas Singleton. How about that? Got him higher than Nicholas Singleton. All right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's fine. He's in my top 10. I don't think it's a horrible rank. 5 seems a bit excessive, but it's not.
There's so much uncertainty in college, like going into 2024. It's a lot of guys that we haven't seen or we've only seen for 1 year. Like there was a year where you could draft Jalen Waddle, Breece Hall, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. We are not in that territory right now in college football where we have a whole bunch of certainty. So I think going into 2024, we're going to see a lot of differences in rankings and not a whole lot of consensus. That's where we're going to find out who knows ball. That's how we're going to find out. All right, here's my wide receiver position. I've got Evan Stewart, number 1, just really well-rounded. Luther Bird, number 2. Teteroa McMillan, number 3. Isaiah Bond, number 4. And I've got Travis Hunter, number 5. If you told me that Travis Hunter was going to commit to the wide receiver position, I think he might be number 1 on this list, actually. And I don't know that it's clear that he is going to be solely a cornerback when he makes the jump to the NFL after the 2024 season. I don't think that it's a given that he's only going to play on the defensive side of the ball. He hasn't 2 years through college. He's not going to next year. Next year, he's probably even going to be the primary wide receiver for Shedeur Sanders. We're talking about a potential Heisman candidacy again for Travis Hunter. So I've got him number 5.
No, I like it. He's in my top 10. I think my biggest concern again with him is I think he should just commit to playing wide receiver, but it doesn't seem like he wants to. He wants to do both. I don't blame him. Do what you got to do. I think he's still a first-round draft pick. I think Austin's mentioned it a bunch. If he committed to wide receiver, I think he could be like the number 1 wide receiver off the board if he wanted to do it. So I've got no issue with Hunter there. I think he's a great player.
All right, I think you're going to like my tight end position here. I've got Luke Lachey from Iowa, number 1. Well, actually, let me go through all of these, and then I'll kind of explain why. I've got Luke Lachey, number 1. Luke Haas from Arkansas, the sophomore, at number 2. I got Arlis Boardingham from Florida at number 3. Ben Urasek, he's in the transfer portal, right? I got him at.
I think he went to Georgia. I'm almost positive he's at Georgia now. Or he
is at Georgia?
He visited Georgia. That's what I think. You think he visited Georgia. I don't know if he's actually committed yet.
I've got Ben Urasek at 4, and I've got Tyler Warren at 5. The unifying theme for all of these guys, well, except for Luke Haas, they're all like 250 pounds or 240 pounds in that range. Yeah. I don't have the guys like Corey Dyches, who I love at Maryland, RJ Maryland at SMU, Colston Loveland, who I liked coming into this season. He's 220 pounds. He's a former wide receiver. That's just too small for me. Aronde Gadsden at Syracuse, again, a tweener, a wide receiver. Don't have him. They all remind me of Josh Simon, who transferred from Western Kentucky to South Carolina. Like these tight ends who are 225 pounds, they have to be supremely athletic. If you remember, like Ed Dixon coming out of Oregon, who ran a 4.4, 4.5, something like that. Or if they're going to be like who's the tight end for who went to Ole Miss and played with Chad Kelly and now is at for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram. Supremely athletic if you're going to be sub 230 pounds. And I don't know that any of those guys are. Here, especially, I mean, these Ty Warren, Luke Lachey, Arlis Boardingham, these guys are these are massive guys who can do a little bit of everything. They're very well-rounded. Luke Lachey, I know he had the torn ACL last year. I think he'll bounce back. I am really excited for Arlis Boardingham because of what he can do after the catch. And I don't think safeties and cornerbacks are going to want to tackle him. He's going to be a second or third year player in he's going to be a third year player in 2024. I really like him. And then Luke Haas was featured in our dunk contest and Alfred in the officials dunk contest. You talk about athleticism. Luke Haas breaking out the way he did for Arkansas last year. I mean, it has to remind you a little bit of Brock Bowers' freshman year at Georgia. So I've got Luke Haas at number 2.
I mean, it's not that I think the only player you mentioned I didn't was Arliss Boardingham. I talked about Luke Haas being right there. Luke Lachey was my number 2. I'd been Eurosec.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
You said that we were going to be diametrically different. And
you had all these 215-pound tweener wide receivers in your top
same
5.
tight ends, except I had a Rodney Gadsden as my 1, but I talked about Luke Haas. Who was the other one? I mentioned guys that were like right there, but Andrew Rappelier. Those guys are smaller. RJ Maryland, but Luke Lachey was right there. So it was Ben Eurosec. Luke Haas.
Going into 2024, a lot of these tight ends might not be rostered too, so it could get some value there with a few of them. Okay, that's all I had. What else we got?
Jason asks, I don't know what the Noah part is, Jason, so you might have to clarify that. But no quarterback, Moss, USC, or Nelson who moved to Boise State in our top 5. No, I think Miller Moss is. Congratulations. I feel I make a joke out of this. I don't know what actual bowl game it is. Congratulations to him for setting the Holiday Bowl touchdown record. I don't personally think his performance was that impressive. And I understand he's a Lincoln Riley quarterback. I'm going to hold off putting that guy fairly high in my rankings. I think it's taken 2 years for him to take that job for a reason. And it was not given any kind of chance over. Well, I guess he was a true freshman, Spencer Rattler, but any chance to even beat out at that time true freshman Caleb Williams. And then Malachi Nelson, still like him. I'm pretty sure I still have him top 20. I think he could crush it at Boise State, but I wouldn't put him in my top 5 or my top 10 right now.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about Malachi Nelson. I think that if he's healthy, and I don't think it's clear that he's actually healthy. I think he's said that he's healthy. But if he's healthy, you go to Boise State, a lower level of competition, he should be able to dominate. Now, I know that they lost Eric McAllister, but they still have that local legend in Austin Bolt that I have rostered in a lot of places. They still have Mike Strawn's little brother in what? Is it Prince?
Yeah,
Prince. Am I saying it wrong? Strachan. And then they got one of the best running backs in college football in Ashton Genty. I mean, there's enough to work with for Malachi Nelson to put up a lot of points. But is he healthy? I think so. I don't know. We'll see. I think that's all we got. Again, like the video, get to 50 likes. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you are not watching this live, help us get to 3,000 before the end of the week. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Peace.